My name is Carol Ann Johnson, and I'm from the Eskazoni First Nation. I've been a social counselor now for 21 years, so I've been in the educational system since then. I've worked with students from kindergarten to grade 12. I've also worked with at-risk students. I've worked with adult learners. I've also gone to school in my community, and that's all I know. We were fortunate enough to have our own school from the time that I was in kindergarten. And then at the time when I was still a teenager, we didn't have a high school, so then we moved off reserve. So that was a different environment altogether for us, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. Coming from your own community and seeing people in your classrooms who live like next door, couple doors down, to being in a classroom where you're the only one sitting there and you have people who you've never met before, you know nothing about their families, and it feels very intimidating. You're sitting there, especially if you don't know anyone, and you're trying to say to yourself, hey, I can do this, because that's what your parents have told you from the time you've started school. You can do this, you can do this, you're smart, you can be whoever you want to be. In the meantime, you're sitting there in a high school for the first time away from your community, and you're saying, they must be crazy. I can't do this. And then, of course, I went from the high school, then you go to university, and once again, I came from a generation who believed that the sooner you got out of your First Nations community, the better. They were the ones who were told to not speak Mi'kmaq, to not speak Mi'kmaq to their children, because they thought. Actually, they didn't think, because I would like to say they were brainwashed into believing that being Mi'kmaq was below than what the whole society made them to believe it was. So I was under the impression that once I went to university and came back, then, hey, you know, I'll move away. Well, that first month, I was telling PJ, I said the first month when I left, I went to Antigonish. I didn't go to Halifax. I went to St. Yves, and in fact, I went with Juliana. She was there too. She's back in the kitchen over there. It was hard because it was the first time away from home, and I just couldn't wait to get home. Yes, I was tough. I was at university. But man, I wanted to be back home. And I swear to God, if I had gotten off that car in Castle Bay, I think I would have kissed the ground and said, thank God I'm home. But I stuck it out. I stuck it out as a young person, and knew that education was the key to success. It was like that, I'm not going to date myself, but I'll say 30 years ago. I think since forever. Education was the key to success then. Education is the key to success now. I have 5 children, and they've all gone to our school, but there was a year when my 2 youngest children had gone off the reserve, and they went to a school that is I'd say, 40 kilometers away from our school. It was a tough decision for me to make, because it was a decision as a parent that if I weren't to make, then who was going to do that for them? Nobody. I had to make it myself, and it was a very strong statement, I believe, because I worked at that school. But in the meantime, I thought they would be better if they had gone to the community or the neighboring school of the community. Well, during the year, they made friends. They were involved in the organized events like any other school. And at the end, about May or June, almost to the end of the school year, they asked me a question. They said, "Mom, are we going to come back to this school in September?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you think? What do you want to do?" And they said, "Well," and this was from my 10-year-old daughter. She said, "Mom, I made friends. I did good." I mean, they did well. They were up there with the non-native students. They were making 90s. You know, they were doing very well. But they said, "There's just one thing. We don't belong. There's just this feeling, Mom, I can't get rid of. It feels like I don't belong." And when she said that, and well, she's only 10 years old, I said to myself, wow, this is a feeling she got when she was 10. I got the exact same feeling when I went to high school. And I was, in reflection, I'm thinking, like, I'm not here to tell you what to decide. I'm just here to tell you my experiences. And in my experience, no matter what, whether you speak Mi'kmaq or not, you are still Mi'kmaq. Lundug Nagilok. You guys are Mi'kmaq First Nations people. And everybody knows that, I mean, I was sitting here and I saw 3 people walking in here earlier while I think the chief was talking. And I was saying to myself, wow, this is a historical event. This is a historical event. And those 3 young people that just walked in there might very well be the principal someday, the director of education someday. And they're going to think back and say, I remember the very first time we started talking about building a school in our community. And they're going to look back at it very fondly. And I said, wow, and I got invited to this. Thank you very much, by the way, Chief, for asking me to come here. I've worked at each school except for the high school, but I worked at a high school in our community. I worked at the at-risk high school, or more for like the older students. And working in your community can be very, I don't want to say hard, but it has its joys and it has its struggles. But everywhere you work, no matter where you work at the bed office or work at Walmart, work at McMack Family, work anywhere, you're going to have your joys and your struggles. And that's what comes from, those come from growth. And we all have to start somewhere. And the sooner you start, the better. So I think the only things, like Dawn was saying, she was mentioning the pros and the cons. Well, I don't want to start micromanaging and telling you about all the experience I've had working with different people and the things that happen in the whole system, like when you're actually in the school. But I think the biggest resource you're going to have is the communication. You're going to have communication with your community members, the parents. The parents are the most important people in a school because they're the ones that are teaching the children. They're teaching their children what to do. They're teaching their children how to behave. I mean, we can't leave it up to the school to teach your child how to be. We all know that. So I think that's the most important thing. And when you're in a community, Mi'kmaq community, you can ask for those resources. Like Don was saying, we have experts in every community. We have experts in beadwork. We have experts in hunting, and we have experts in fishing. We have experts in Mi'kmaq dancing, like experts. And the growing trend in the educational system is decolonization. And what that means is, and I wish I could express myself, right now, but the growing trend is what we've been taught all these years to be lower or to be, we have to start taking pride in who we are. Indigenous knowledge. Even if you don't speak Mi'kmaq, I said that before when I began, you're still Mi'kmaq. Even when you go off the reserve and you're saying, well, I don't speak Mi'kmaq, but I don't get along here. Of course you don't get along there. Of course you don't get along, because you walk with your beliefs, you walk with your culture, you walk with your tradition, and it's different when you're immersed in another community. I mean, you go from community to community, you're going to see that. You go from Burladek to Wegoroma, you're going to see people are different. So getting back to having a school in your community, I can only say that there's going to be a lot of positive things come from it. Because even in our school, like we even have a band. We have a band program. And we're lucky enough now that band program now continues to the high school. So now they learn band in high school. So it didn't happen overnight, of course. That's after having our own school in 30 years before that ever became a reality. But the fact is, it became a reality. We have 5 years ago, we had my former colleague, she used to be a grade 8 teacher, Janine Marshall. She brought basketball to our school, and her and a couple of other teachers did the boys and girls basketball, and they started taking them out to the neighboring non-Aboriginal communities like Sydney, Glace Bay, and New Waterford, and they were playing at each other's schools. Well, our school and our students, my God, I don't know if they won 3 games in 3 years, right? And then in the end, they became the champions. Eskasoni Middle School boys basketball team became the champions. That's why this guy over here he's pursuing his basketball career. Unfortunately, we don't have one in our high school that's would be called rep, because we don't have enough students who are at his caliber. But, it doesn't matter, still higher caliber. But things like that in our school that allow these children to look up to each other. Because, they'll look up to adults, but who's the better mentor? Who's the better role model than someone who's in grade 9, in grade 12? My daughter is actually one of the students who graduated from the immersion program, the Pioneer Immersion Program. And there was a total of 13 of them that just graduated in June. And she's a student now in Dalhousie. She's in the medical sciences program. And aside from what anybody would go through, leaving her community with those struggles on how hard it was, and becoming homesick and making new friends and stuff like that, she still did very well. I mean, she still made, I know she'd probably kill me if I told you her marks, but I'm not going, she still made 3 A's and 2 B's. And this is a student who came from the immersion program. That's another thing, even if you can't have a school that's going to have an immersion program, the fact that they're going to be in a school with people in their own community is still going to give them that sense of pride. and belonging that they can't get from anywhere else. Again, like Don said, I know I talk a lot, sorry that. Don said, under the MK schools, we have programs like speech festivals, fine arts festival, we have the math fair, science fair, and they get to meet all the other students from the neighboring Mi'kmaq communities. And they all get to they'll compete. They can compete in school stuff, just like they can compete with the athletic stuff at track and field day. In fact, they have it a lot of the times at St. Yves, the campus here. And they compete with each other. Kind of thinking back at those days where they used to have those ball games and those hockey tournaments. Well, they get to do that with track and field. They get to do that with their math. They get to do that with their science. And it's wonderful because then they get to see all the possibilities. Like, wow, Mom, that girl is smart. Like, that guy makes 100s in his science, he told me. Like, things that they can achieve themselves and they can aspire to achieve. They get inspired. They get inspired by their own people, their own peers. And I think that's very important. I've been very fortunate to work with students from all different backgrounds. And when I say all different backgrounds, I mean, yeah, I've worked with all Mi'kmaq children, but every single person is different. Every single family is different. Every single family struggles with different things. And I've been fortunate enough to see that. And I'll tell you, the most valuable thing that I've learned as a social counselor is the parent and the child, and the parent and their involvement with the child. Be there for your child. Make these decisions that are important for them. Because like those kids that walked in here, I don't know who they are, but they sure look like future leaders to me. So when you guys make that decision about whether you guys should have a school here or not, think of those things. And yeah, I'll probably have, you guys could ask me all kinds of questions. But thank you for listening.